Yo, what is going on? Welcome to the complete Guilty Gear Strive Slayer tutorial. In this video, I'm going to cover everything you'll need to know about Slayer separated into these separate sections that you see on screen now. Each section will be separated by timestamps, so feel free to just click to whatever section you're interested in from there. And if you're new to fighting games and you hear me say some goofy FGC term that sounds like gibberish to you, allow me to reference you to the Fighting Games Glossary. This is the website where you can search up any terms I use that just sound like gibberish and get a concise definition, though I will try to briefly define these terms as I use them in the video. And finally, I gotta give shoutouts to Dustloop, which is another incredible website that compiles all sorts of data and information about fighting games. There will be links to both of these websites in the description. Alright, let's get into the guide now. Let's start by talking about Slayer's P normals, beginning with 5P. It has an average 5P speed of 5 frames, meaning if you mash this on wake up, you'll beat out any sort of throw attempt. And it has solid range, but it's one of those moves that won't hit characters that are crouching or using low-profile moves. That is, however, kind of a double-edged sword. Though it doesn't hit opponents low to the ground, the high hitbox means it's a good, fast choice for an anti-air. Then let's talk about 5P Gatlings, and if you don't know, Gatling just means canceling one normal into another. So Slayer can Gatling his 5P into more 5Ps just like most characters, and this is a gapless string as well. Other gapless Gatling options Slayer has from 5P include 2P, and 6P. And with a gap, you can Gatling into 6H, and your overhead 6K. The main confirm that you're going to be getting off of 5P is going to be the P version of Mappa Hunch, since the K version is too slow to combo without a counter hit, or Gatlinging into 5P or 2P. Though, to be honest, most of the time 2P should be your preferred option when attacking someone on the ground with a fast button. This move also comes out in 5 frames, is slightly bigger than 5P, and has 1 frame less recovery, so you do the math. And as if that wasn't enough, you also get a greater reward on counter hit compared to 5P. Counter hit 2P allows you to combo into 2K, 5K, and even close slash if you're close enough, which will allow for some very good conversions off of a jab. Alright, onto kick normals. Starting with 5K, this is a 7-frame move with very good range for a 5K. It almost hits the opponent at round start distance, and it probably will if the opponent does a move that extends their hurt box forward. Slayer has 2 Gatlings from 5K that are gapless, his 6P, and his 2D, and with a gap he can Gatling into the 6K overhead, 5D overhead, or 6H. You can always get a conversion off of landing this poke with both versions of Mappa Hunch, using the P version to stay in your opponent's face and less damage, or the K version to knock the opponent away with a soft knockdown and more damage. 5K into sweep is almost always a true combo and a powerful way to score a hard knockdown, but if you hit with just the tip of 5K, it is possible for the sweep to not true combo. And on counter hit, 5K into 6H will be a true combo, which allows for a nice little string. Now onto 2K, which is a quick 6-frame low attack. It has the same Gatling options as 5K with a gapless cancel into 2D and 6P, and a Gatling with a gap into 6H, 6K, and 5D. This is Slayer's fastest low option, and much like 5K, it will always combo into either 2D or either variant of Mappa Hunch. And on counter hit, it combos into 6H as well. Overall, it's a very good low attack, and there's not a whole lot more to say about it until we talk about combos, so moving on. Alright, now let's talk about the monster of a button that is Slayer's Close Slash. This is definitely one of the best close slashes in the game, starting with the fact that this move registers as close slash from very far away. It's huge, and not just huge on the ground, but the hitbox also shoots up very high vertically as well, making this move a very potent anti-air that's also +3 on block. Gapless Gatling options off a close slash include 6P, far slash, 5H, 2S, 2H, and 2D. And then with a gap, you can Gatling 6K, 5D, and 6H. Close slash to 6H only has a 1-frame gap, meaning if the opponent does anything that isn't an invincible reversal, they will get hit. This is also known as a frame trap. 6H will even hit the opponent if they decide to backdash after close slash. That is, unless they have a 6-frame invulnerable backdash, then the 6H will whiff. But we'll get more into pressure scenarios and how to do combos later in this guide. Overall, this is an amazing close slash and is going to be the cornerstone of Slayer's pressure. And Slayer's far slash might just be even better than his close slash. This move is pretty nuts. Due to the fact that Slayer steps forward before the move comes out, it actually has pretty good range. It comes out in 11 frames, only has 13 frames of recovery, and is a whopping +4 on block. It can Gatling gaplessly into both 5H and 2H, And on hit, if you're close enough, you can actually link it into a close slash, which is just pretty wild. A link, by the way, just means you have to time the close slash after the far slash ends. It doesn't cancel into it, so it's just a slightly harder to execute combo. So you can do things like close slash into far slash, link into close slash into far slash, into 5H into Mappa Hunch, for example. I'll talk more about what you can link into after far slash later, but also important to mention is that this move hits 2 different times. The hitbox of far slash also hits pretty high into the air, so it's not uncommon for it to be an opponent's air approach, making this a kind of tricky move to deal with in neutral. Though do be careful, cause like most far slashes, it does lose to 6 Ps. Alright, now on to Slayer's last slash move, 2S. This is a very unique move that will vacuum the opponent towards you on either hit or block and is a relatively fast startup move at just 10 frames. You have 2 Gatlings that are both gapless off of this, 5H and 2H. This move allows for unique pressure situations where you can delay your command grab after landing this move or delay a 5H to create a potent strike throw mix-up. And then on to Slayer's heavy slash buttons, starting with 5H. This move is disjointed in front of Slayer where he punches, which just means your opponent can't hit you on that part of the hitbox. It comes out in 13 frames, and just like his far slash, he steps forward before the attack comes out, so it may have a bit more range than you'd initially think. In fact, it's just about the same size as his far slash if you include the forward step, and just a tiny bit smaller. There are no Gatlings out of this move, but you can combo both versions of Mappa Hunch from a hit. And on counter hit, you just get the entire world. Do whatever you want. It has a massive ground bounce that pops the opponent into the air, and if you do a P dandy step and don't do the follow-up, you're right in their face for a combo. And I'll give you some specific ones later. Next is 2H, and this is another very unique and strong move. It's a massive low attack that's almost entirely disjointed and comes out in 13 frames. It even has lower body invulnerability starting at frame 5 to frame 15, which means low attacks won't even hit you. And this lower body invul is actually super generous. Even a lot of moves that are mids won't be able to hit you so long as their hitbox isn't particularly high, such as a Viking or Soul 2S. The major drawback to this move though is that it has a lot of total frames, 43 of them, so try not to whiff it. No Gatlings on this move, but on hit it launches the opponent up, meaning you have a few different combo options, either version of Mappa Hunch or a Pile Bunker. On counter hit, it's a similar situation to 5H. The opponent flies up into the air, and if you do P dandy step with no follow-up, you are directly in their face and ready to do just way too much damage. Overall, 2H is a very strong poke in Slayer's kit, but you run the risk of giving your opponent an easy whiff punish if you use it too liberally. Slayer's 2D or his sweep is another interesting move. It comes out in just 10 frames and is yet another advancing move which goes quite far, quite fast. It has a good amount of active frames, that being 6, which means that the hitbox is actually active throughout a large portion of the slide. Though you will surely notice that it doesn't hit right at the end of the slide, so be careful there. On hit, you can combo it into either version of Mappa Hunch, but if you don't follow up on a hit, you will get a hard knockdown, and Slayer seems to get really pretty good Oki off of a sweep knockdown. And if you don't know, Oki just means pressure on wake up, basically. But we'll get deeper into that in the Oki section of this guide. Overall, Slayer's 2D is another strong low poke in his kit that gives you a chance to start your offense since it gives your opponent a hard knockdown. Then on to command normals. Slayer has 3 of them. Let's start off with 6P. 6P is the universal anti-air in Guilty Gear, and like all of these, it is upper body invulnerable. And it works fine as an anti-air, but do note that this move is pretty stubby horizontally. On hit, 6P blows the opponent backwards, and you can combo into either version of Mappa Hunch from it. And on counter hit, you can even hit a Pile Bunker. So yeah, overall, the hitbox on 6P leaves a little bit to be desired, but the reward off of it is pretty great. Then on to Slayer's 6K. This is a pretty slow 28 frame move where Slayer jumps up into the air and lands with an overhead heel drop. And the trade-off for it being so slow, aside from it being an overhead, is that it's actually +2 on block. Then on hit, you can combo into either 2K or 2P. And if you hold the K button after inputting this move, Slayer will do a feint and land with nothing but a bow, allowing you to go for a cheeky little throw. I'm not exactly sure how good this will be though, just because of how slow it is. Alright, and then the final normal we have to talk about is Slayer's 6H. This is another very active, at 6 frames, advancing normal that comes out in 19 frames. And it has 2 different unique hitboxes. For the first 3 frames, it's this very disjointed high-hitting move, and then for the next 3 frames, it's this far-reaching horizontal attack. And important to note, this first hitbox that hits high actually will not hit crouching opponents. And since this is the first part of the move and it lasts for the first 3 active frames, this is effectively a frame 22 move against crouching opponents as opposed to its usual 19 frame startup. On hit, it puts the opponent into a crouching state, which means you can connect with a Pile Bunker, either that or either version of Mappa Hunch. Oh, and I actually forgot about a command normal. Well, not sure if this is a command normal or a special, but whatever, let's talk about Slayer's backdash move, Hand of of Doom. At any point during his backdash, Slayer can input 6S and it'll get cancelled with this move. So some people say this is kind of like a DP, but I don't know, it's like the poorest of poor man's DPs. It has 12 frames of startup and it does not maintain the invincibility from his backdash, but the move flies forward whenever you decide to input the 6S. Be careful though, as this move leaves you -7 and pretty much directly in front of your opponent's face, which means if you do this move at close range, you'll be eating a close slash starter combo as a punish, which does a lot of damage. And without spending meter, the only way you can follow up on hitting this move is if it's a counter hit, in which case you can land a 5k or 2k. Alright, then we've covered all of Slayer's normals, let's move on to his special moves. First we've got Mappa Hunch. It has a P version, which comes out quicker at 11 frames, is weaker, is slightly safer on block at -1, and does not knock the opponent down on hit. And a K version, which has a slower startup coming out on frame 14, is stronger, is slightly less safe on block at -2, and sends the opponent flying into a soft knockdown on hit. And that K Mappa Hunch being -2 on block is actually a pretty big deal, because if you use this move too close to your opponent, you can get punished with a throw. However, if you hit their block from far enough away, you will be safe from a throw punish. Not only that, if you hit this move from further away, this move can actually be up to +3, making it a powerful way to get in on your opponent from almost full screen. On counter hit for the P version, you can hit 2k into either version of Mappa Hunch, and for the K version, you can hit either 2k or 5k, also into either version of Mappa Hunch. Next is Slayer's signature move, Dandy Step. The P version of this move will have Slayer dash forward, while the K version will have him sway backwards before swaying back forwards again. And this beginning movement is the only difference between the two versions of Dandy Step. The follow-ups are the same between them. And also worth noting is that the movement on the P version can actually cross the opponent up, which is a lot of fun. This move isn't just movement though, each version has 4 follow-up attacks out of them. After a minimum of 17 frames, hitting one of your attack buttons will perform a unique follow-up attack. Hitting P will use Pile Bunker, and God, I love Pile Bunker. This is the fastest option out of Dandy Step, coming out after just 5 frames, after the minimum 17 of course. While it is the fastest, it's also very, very unsafe on block, leaving you at -14. This move is fairly disjointed in front of Slayer and does massive damage, even sticking the opponents to the wall in just 1 hit. You don't get any follow-ups on a normal hit without meter, and on counter hit, the only follow-up you have is your Super Mappa Hunch, or a K Mappa Hunch. You can convert off of this move meterlessly in some combos, but yeah, we'll save that for the combo section. The next Dandy Step follow-up is if you hit the K button, you get a low attack, Bump Ahead. This move comes out in 13 frames, is only -2, and is also disjointed with a very low-to-the-ground hitbox. While you don't get any follow-ups on a normal hit, you do get a close slash combo on counter hit. The next follow-up is by pushing S during Dandy Step, and you get his overhead, which nicely complements his low, a move called It's Late. This move also comes out in 13 frames, is highly disjointed, and -2. It also hits extremely high vertically, making it a very good anti-air. However, you won't get any follow-ups on it, whether hit in the air or on the ground, unless it's a counter hit, and in which case, you get big combos. And then the final Dandy Step follow-up is by pushing the heavy slash button, and that gives you Master's Hammer. This comes out in 25 frames, is slightly disjointed on both sides of Slayer, and leaves you at a whopping +26 on block. So yeah, it's a pressure reset. If you're close enough to the opponent when doing this move, you'll also jump to the other side of them and cross them up. You don't get any follow-ups on a normal hit, but on counter hit, you once again have the universe at your fingertips. And finally, Slayer's last special move is one of the most potent tools in his offense, his command grab, Blood-Sucking Universe. Being a command grab, it's larger than a normal throw, but comes out in 7 frames instead of 2. You are, however, invulnerable to throws for the first 8 frames of this move, meaning you will beat out an opponent who hits throw when you hit this. And on top of that, you even heal 20% of the damage dealt with this grab on a hit. And on top of that, on a hit, Slayer gets a buff for about the next 6 seconds where any move he hits has a huge counter hit slowdown, similar to hitting someone with a full wrist bar, which allows you to extend into combos off of pretty much any hit you land. And on top of that, this universe counter deals 30% more damage than a normal hit and 20% more damage than a counter hit. Though probably the biggest downside of this move is that it doesn't reward a hard knockdown on hit, unlike most other throws in the game. Also, this universe buff goes away instantly if you get hit. Alright, then the last moves of Slayer's that we have to go over are his supers. His first Super Mappa Hunch, is invincible on startup, but it's one of those reversal supers that has a slow startup of 14 frames before the super flash and 1 frame after. This means that most most characters can safely pressure you with a jab, and even if you do your reversal super, they'll recover in time to block it, so that's not great. But that does mean that you can do the super and PRC it before it actually comes out as an invincible reversal option. This allows you to retain the invulnerability from the super startup, and it does not take the 50 meter for the super either. Just note that your invulnerability ends when you Roman cancel, so be sure not to do it too early. The super itself, though, is a full screen attack. After the super flash, the attack comes out instantly, meaning your opponent does not have an opportunity to RC whatever they're doing to be safe. If they're doing something, they're gonna get hit. This super also has a sweet spot where it hits a second time and does about double the damage. And finally, you can even cancel your backdash into this super by inputting 63214 backdash 6S if you want even more invincibility and startup on Super Mappa Hunch. Okay, and for Slayer's final super, Last Horizon. This is only available to you once you have a full bar of meter, and it has no invincibility at all, which means this super is probably the most useful as a way to finish combos when you just so happen to have 100 meter. But man, this super just does insane damage, and you can convert into it off of most of your normals. Alright, now let's talk about Slayer's very unique movement and the unique options that he has because of it. So, much like Giovanna or Leo, Slayer is a step dash character, which simply means he does not run. When you hit the dash button, he moves a set distance forward, but he also has a pretty unique backdash. Not only is he the only character in the game that actually has moves out of backdash, but he also remains grounded throughout the entirety of it, meaning if you get hit out of it, you won't pop up into the air like every other character, and it also has 6 full frames of invulnerability. But unfortunately, that's kind of where the good parts of his backdash end. Actually, it might be arguable whether it's a good thing or not that he isn't airborne during it too. It also has the longest recovery of any backdash, with it having a total duration of 28 full frames, and Slayer does not move back right away when you hit backdash like other characters. This means that even though you have a large amount of invulnerability on it, you're gonna find yourself getting hit in a lot of situations where other characters wouldn't, trying to backdash out of pressure situations, because he spends the first part of his backdash just kind of staying in place. While Slayer's forward dash does look like a teleport just like his backdash, he does not have any invulnerability on it, and he can't cancel it into anything past a certain point. He can't block during his forward dash either, though thankfully you can still cancel the very beginning of your forward dash with a jump, so Slayer still has a further reaching running jump. But that's not all. Since you can cancel jumps into special moves, you can shoot forward with your special moves by inputting dash, canceling that with a jump, and canceling that jump with a special move. This is called Kara canceling. And when you Kara cancel Bloodsucking Universe, it shoots forward like this, turning what is already a really big grab into a really big grab. The input for this is 63214 forward dash jump 5H, and you get this sliding Bloodsucking Universe. This is also very helpful with Mappa Hunch, as it turns the K version into almost an entire full screen attack. It gives P Mappa Hunch some more range, and when used on a P Tandy step, you cover much more ground. This will allow you to cross up your opponent from a considerably further distance, which they may not expect. Using this technique is going to be an important step in optimizing Slayer's neutral game through boosted Mappa Hunches and Dandy steps, and making his already deadly pressure that much scarier with things such as a Kara cancelled Bloodsucking Universe. Okay, I think that's about all I have to say about Slayer's movement right now. Moving on to combos. How this part's kind of gonna go is I'm gonna give you a combo that you can do without any meter, a combo off of counter hit, a combo with 1 RC, and whatever else I decide to throw in for most of Slayer's moves. And these combos are gonna be optimized mostly for damage. In the Oki section of this guide, I'll give combos that you can do for better Oki and less damage, which you'll probably want to do at times because Slayer's Oki seems kinda really good. Alright, let's start with combos off of 2P, since that's gonna be your main button you use to mash out of pressure. Without meter, the only thing you get is a short string of 2P into P Mappa Hunch, and here's a counter hit 2P combo. Just be careful, at far distances the 2K won't connect after 2P, and if you do get the 5K, the 2D may not combo if you're too far away. In these instances, the safest route is to just go for 2P, 5K, Mappa Hunch. And for a combo off of 2P with an RC, well, actually, this is probably going to be a good time to explain Pile Bunker loops. If you haven't seen these yet, then get ready, because they're really awesome. Normally, Pile Bunker sends the opponent flying across the screen, but in some instances, often after using 2S on an airborne opponent to bring them closer to you, you can get this reverse hit of Pile Bunker by being just barely in front of the airborne opponent when you hit them. This will send them tumbling towards you and push the both of you across the screen, and then you can pick them up with a close slash and just keep the combo going for just bananas damage. The major problem with these is that they can be a little bit inconsistent at times. There are some setups which work very well, such as RCing after hitting a point-blank pile bunker and canceling the RC with a P dandy step, which puts you behind the opponent. And from there, close slash very consistently picks them up. Another pretty consistent setup, though certainly less consistent than the fast RC P dandy step after pile bunker, is just doing an immediate 2S after an RC, but not canceling the RC. But this does not work in every situation. My preferred method in general is definitely a point-blank pile bunker, but you're not always going to have the opportunity to start a loop like this. So the next best method I have for pile bunker loops is just by timing them yourself. Do an RC forward, and immediately after the RC finishes, do a close slash. Then catch the opponent as they're falling with a 2S, and then K dandy step pile bunker. I think this method probably sounds a bit harder than it is, but something to note is that when you're trying to time these loops, is that the more hits there are in your combo before you RC, the lower to the ground the opponent will be. Meaning, in higher hit combos, you'll barely have to delay the 2S at all, while in a short combo, your delay will be much longer. And there are surely a bunch of different ways to do these loops, and I'm sure more consistent ways to pull this off will come as time passes and things develop. So definitely experiment with this and try to find ways to pull off these loops that work well for you. And one last general thing before we get into more specific combos, if you're ever just not confident in going for the loops or you're close to the corner already, there's this really easy combo you can do after the RC instead. And remember, you'll probably want to do neutral RC or moving backwards RC, as these send the opponent the highest into the air. Alright, let's get back to our 2P combos. Here's one with an RC. Also, you can just dash forward after the RC on these combos, and since your dash goes through the opponent, this will allow you to do the combo whichever way you want. But when you do dash through, and this will apply to all pile bunker loops, I think it's easier to use a forward RC, and then after the dash through, close slash 2S as opposed to just 2S. So that combo would look like this. And just a quick note about this 2H I do before the final pile bunker, you can do that in these loops when the combo gets long enough. If it's too short, you have to either skip the 2H and just do 2S pile bunker, or you can delay the 2S slightly and then delay the 2H slightly. Otherwise, the opponent will be too high to get hit by the 2H. And since you can dash through after an RC, you can get a wall break from just about anywhere on the screen if you use a red RC in a combo, which is pretty insane. So basically, the way I see how Slayer's combo routing is going to go is just go for pile bunker loops whenever you can to get a wall break. Even if you start a combo on an opponent who is completely in the corner, you can still do pile bunker loops on them if you want to, due to the fact that 2S brings them out of the corner enough for you to get behind them. Okay, next is the universal anti-air Slayer's 6P. Without any meter or counter hit, the only thing you're going to get off of this is a Mappa hunch. Though if you do get the counter hit, you get a pretty big reward because you get to do a dandy step into pile bunker. But I am finding it really difficult to convert into loops off of this hit, so here's a non-loop RC combo. Moving on to 5K. Meterlessly, you've got 5K, 2D, Mappa hunch, but again, be careful going into 2D at a max range 5K poke, as it won't actually connect. The safer route is just 5K into Mappa hunch. And on counter hit, you can actually confirm a 6H, so here's what that looks like. Though it's worth noting that the 6H does not connect if you hit the 5K while the opponent is crouching. And, of course, you can spend meter on either of these combos to RC and start a pile bunker loop. So, a quick side note for when you're trying to do pile bunker loops after RCing in a combo where you used 2D or 2H. Unless you delay the Mappa hunch so your opponent is very low to the ground, these loops are going to be kind of different to do since they're going to be so much higher up. And that applies to pretty much all combos that include a 2H or a 2D, though 2D will typically send them higher. One way I like to do it is a close slash right after the RC finishes, followed by a delayed 2S, which looks like this. Though you can still just do 2S after the RC instead of close slash 2S, you'll just have to time it basically. Also, here's a combo that you can typically do as a replacement for pile bunker loops and is much easier, it just doesn't have quite as much corner carry. But it does do about as much damage. Also worth noting, if you hit pile bunker on an opponent when they're right next to the wall, such as during this combo, you cannot break the wall with another pile bunker. You won't have time, you'll have to use 6H. But in the previous combo, the 2H pushes them away from the wall when we hit our last pile bunker, so you can use another one to wall break, which is good damage. And next is 2K, which is going to combo in very similar ways to 5K. You have 2K 2D Mappa hunch, or you could just do 2K Mappa hunch. And on counter hit, as well as 6H on a standing opponent, you can even get a close slash if you're close enough, since 2K has a little bit more hitstun on it. So on counter hit, you could do something like this. Alright, next let's go into close slash, and the damage on this move is just wild. With no meter, the most damage I've got is with this combo. And here's a combo for counter hit. And the most damage I could find off of a close slash starter with only one RC is this. And with another pile bunker to break the wall, this does like 300 damage on soul. Onto 2S, you can go into 2H and a P dandy step pile bunker with no meter. And on counter hit, you can do this. A 2S combo with an RC. Alright, then on to far slash. Here's the best you can do without meter. And if you hit the far slash from too far away to link back into close slash, you can just go for far slash, 2H, P dandy step, pile bunker. And funnily enough, on counter hit, far slash can actually link back into itself. And since Slayer steps forward each time he does far slash, if you hit this move at max range on a counter hit and then link it back into another far slash, you'll be close enough to link that second far slash into a close slash. And an RC combo off of far slash looks like this. Alright, now let's get into our heavy slash buttons, starting with 5H. The only actual confirm you get off of this is a Mappa Hunch, though obviously you can spend 50 meter to RC that and start a pile bunker loop. And here's a 5H on counter hit combo. And this combo is pretty much completely auto-timed. But worth noting, if you're too far away when you hit the 5H, the close slash you do after the charged dust won't work. So here's a slightly altered version if you're too far away. And finally, just for the hell of it, let's do an air combo for the side switch combo. Now onto 6H. With no meter, the highest damage you've got is just 6H, dandy step, pile bunker. On counter hit, we've got this. And if you're too far away to get a close slash after the dandy step, you can just go for 5K, 6H, dandy step, pile bunker. Here's an RC combo with 6H. Now 2H. Without meter, the best conversion you have is just dandy step pile bunker. And on counter hit, 2H is probably the most auto-timed combo in terms of pile bunker loops that we have, and that looks like this. And here's the 2H RC combo. And now let's talk 2D. So for no meter, the only thing you get is a Mappa Hunch. With one RC, you get this. And here's your counter hit 2D combo. Alright, let's talk about dandy step follow-up, starting with the overhead called It's Late. Obviously, you're not going to get anything off of this without spending meter, so here's a combo that uses one RC at close range. And here's a combo to use at point blank range on a counter hit. And to be honest, at a distance with a counter hit, it's a lot harder to get something going without spending meter. Your most consistent route is just going to be It's Late, 5K, 6H, dandy step, pile bunker. Now onto the low out of dandy step, bump ahead. For a close range RC combo, we've got this. And for a close range counter hit combo, this is the way I can most consistently get the pile bunker loop going. And at a distance, once again, your follow-ups that are going to be consistent are pretty much limited to bump ahead, 5K, 6H, P dandy step, pile bunker. Now let's talk about pile bunker follow-ups on counter hit. It's not much. You can either do a normal K Mappa Hunch, or you can do your super Mappa Hunch. So if pile bunker blasts them into the corner on counter hit, even without a wall splat, you can still break it with your super, so that's nice. And for a meme 1 RC combo, I've got to throw this out there, the 5 pile bunker combo. This isn't a very consistent combo, but I just had to include it. Okay, then let's talk about RC combos for the Master's Hammer follow-up. And on counter hit, this one's actually pretty easy. Okay, let's get into Slayer's Oki and combo routes that you can use to set up for some strong Oki. This is probably one of Slayer's biggest strengths as a character. Off of a hard knockdown, he has some terrifying side swap high-low strike throw mix-ups. Let's start with Mappa Hunch. So the P version of this move is going to be something you're using to frame trap with a lot and ending a lot of your block strings with. And if you ever hit a counter hit with this move, it actually sets up perfectly for a safe jump with JH afterwards. And you can even do a 2P after the Mappa Hunch to get a bit more damage and you still have the safe jump. Or if you just want more damage, you can do a counter hit, P Mappa Hunch, 2K, K Mappa Hunch, and then do P Dandy Step, and your mix-up will be meaty. And it's the exact same deal with a counter hit on K Mappa Hunch. You can just safe jump, or you can hit a 2P before for a bit more damage. Or you can do counter hit K Mappa Hunch, 5K, K Mappa Hunch, P Dandy Step, and your mix will be meaty. Let's talk about Sweep Oki because it's pretty nuts. So where do we start? First, you can just do a close slash OTG, which means on the ground, and just cancel that with an instant air dash JH for a safe jump. Or you can do close slash and then instantly dash cancel it, and you'll actually side swap them with your dash, and then you can meaty with close slash. And if you delay the dash cancel by just a little bit, you won't side swap and you'll stay on the same side. You can also just cancel this OTG close slash into a P Dandy Step instead of a dash cancel and go straight for mix. Next Oki option off of Sweep is 5H P Dandy Step. This is pretty much the same as with close slash, but it just does more damage. And finally, let's look at 2D OTG off of the 2D knockdown, which lets you apply your high-low mix as well as a side swap mix. So similarly to with close slash, if you cancel the 2D OTG instantly with P Dandy Step, you'll stay on the same side of the opponent and get to go for your high-low. But if you delay the P Dandy Step just a little bit, since the slide moves forward so quickly, you'll actually side swap them and can mix them up on that side, which is really good. And on that note, let's talk about some more ways to get a knockdown with 2D. Aside from just hitting a raw sweep, you can actually link into 5K from far slash to get a sweep knockdown. So if you hit a close slash, here's a combo you could do for 2D Oki. Alright, now let's talk about Pile Bunker Oki. Off of this, you get a nice little safe jump with instant air dash JH. Just be sure to not hit the JH instantly because you have to delay it very slightly. Or you could just do a super jump instant air dash JH and it's auto timed. And on counter hit Pile Bunker, you can still get the safe jump, you just have to whiff a 2D and then instantly instant air dash JH. The timing on this is kind of tight, but it is auto timed, you just can't be slow. Now as for the low, bump ahead, you get amazing Oki off of this. It's basically just 2D Oki. You get a hard knockdown, and if you hit this move from further away, you can dash forward after hitting it and still have time to OTG with either close slash or 2D, so pretty much do whatever you want here from the 2D Oki section. 2D OTG P Dandy Step, close slash OTG safe jump, close slash OTG dash cancel, just go nuts. As for Oki off of hitting It's Late, well, let's just say it's pretty bad. If you hit it while you're close to the opponent, you can hold forward and get a meaty far slash 2H or 6H, but that's about it, and that's really not much. Master's Hammer Oki, on the other hand, is pretty solid. It isn't a hard knockdown, but you are plus enough so that you can do a P Dandy Step and apply your high-low mix-up. The bad news is that it's not auto-timed. You have to delay it slightly for it to hit meaty, but you can do it. For me, I try to do the Dandy Step right before the opponent hits the ground, and that seems to be pretty good timing to hit this meaty. Also, if you hit this move right next to the opponent, and then you input P Dandy Step as soon as you're able to, you can actually side swap them, then you just have to time the high-low. So off of Master's Hammer, you get a side swap as well as high-low mix-up. As for Throw Oki, it's pretty simple. If you just jump forward, it's an auto-timed safe jump with JH. Or you can go for 2D OTG canceled into P Dandy Step. Though, do be careful, since you're not right next to the opponent after the hard knockdown off of Throw, it's a lot harder to time the P Dandy Step so that it side swaps and you can't be grabbed compared to a knockdown off of a sweep, but it is possible. Off of an air throw, you get another safe jump with instant air dash JH. Just again, be careful as you have to delay the JH ever so slightly, just don't do it right away. Now as for Oki off of Bloodsucking Universe, it's also not really amazing. You don't get a hard knockdown off of this throw, you're only plus 10 and it sends the opponent a fair distance away. So your options for hitting the opponent meaty after this are going to be limited to far slash, 2S, 5H, 2H, and 2D. As for hard knockdown wall break Oki, you can apply your high-low mix with P Dandy Step, though again, this is not going to be auto-timed. Or something else I like to do in specific matchups is dash forward and meaty with the tip of 2H. Since this move is so disjointed, you can actually keep yourself safe from most characters' meterless reversals, even including something like Biken's parry. Alright, that's all for Oki. Now let's talk about how you're supposed to navigate this wacky little neutral game with Slayer so you can start applying your terrifying offense. So I don't really want to say Slayer's neutral game is bad. bad since he's still so fresh off of a release, but it certainly is unconventional. Since Slayer's forward and back dash are active for so long, and with his forward dash in particular not having any way to cancel it after a certain point, simply moving forwards and backwards on the ground is a lot more committal than most characters. Though luckily for him, he has other moves in his kit that move him forwards and backwards in unique ways. P-Mappa Hunch is something Slayer can use to move forward with a hitbox in front of him and is only slightly more committal than his forward dash. Or even better at distances further away is his K version of Mappa Hunch, which is active for a very generous 6 frames and travels very far. And like I touched on earlier, since this move has so many active frames, if you hit the opponent's block towards the end of Mappa Hunch's duration, you'll be plus on block, making this an extremely powerful tool in neutral to close the distance on your opponent and start your offense. And yeah, you can Kara cancel it to cover almost the entire screen. Just be careful being too predictable with this powerful neutral skip, as Mappa Hunch is beaten by 6 Ps and it can be low profiled by a variety of moves. Some other strong pokes Slayer has in neutral are obviously his 2H. It has massive range, is extremely disjointed, and will beat out any moves with hitboxes that are relatively low to the ground, and is massively rewarding on counter hit. But again, just be careful using this move too much, as you'll be stuck in this move for 43 frames after using it on whiff, so you'll be a sitting duck. But it is a very strong move to challenge opponents on the ground. 5K is a very good and less committal poke, as it comes out in just 7 frames with excellent range. And the final poke of Slayer's I want to talk about is his 2D. This is another extremely high range, low hitting poke, but it has some advantages and disadvantages compared to 2H. 2D comes out 3 frames faster on frame 10, is active for more frames, 6 as opposed to 2H's 2, is much less committal since it only has 31 total frames instead of 2H's 43, it provides a hard knockdown on hit which allows for devastating Oki, and even has a longer total range than 2H. So why use 2H over 2D at all? Well, 2D is actually a very small move, it just moves forward super quickly. Since the hitbox is so small and not at all disjointed, you're much more susceptible to being hit out of it when compared to 2H. There's also the lower body invul on 2H that's very helpful, but overall these two options are both fantastic, and Slayer has some very strong and high range low poke options because of them. And finally, let's talk about Slayer's jump-ins, which are pretty solid. Nothing really crazy, but they get the job done. His JH has the best hitbox for jumping in, it hits below him and is pretty big, so I mean that's pretty straightforward. But I also want to talk about JS because it's a very interesting move. While its hitbox does not hit below him nearly as much as JH, it is a multi-hitting move, hitting a total of 3 times, which is useful when used as a jump-in, especially because you can cancel this into either JH or JD. The opponent has to stay standing when blocking every hit of JS. If they block the first hit and then crouch, the second and third hits will hit them and then you get a combo. So basically, since you can cancel JS into either JH or JD, you can mix up whether you do 1 overhead aerial, 2 overhead aerials, or 3 overhead aerials if you jump in with JS. Here's what that looks like. 1 overhead aerial would be after hitting the first hit of JS, you cancel it into JH. And JH is actually too slow and won't come out in time, so you land before it hits. And then when you land, you can use a low attack, your 6 frame 2K. 2 overhead aerials would be canceling the first hit of JS into JD, and then you can land with close slash to keep the combo going if the overhead opened the opponent up, or you can land with a low again. And 3 overhead aerials would be canceling the second hit of JS into JD, and then again landing with a 2K or close slash. Alright, and then once you navigate the neutral game successfully and get to start applying Slayer's offense is when he gets kinda nutty. It all starts with his close slash. For starters, it's +3 on block, and if you want a frame trap out of it, 6H leaves a 1 frame gap. And if the opponent mashes on this gap and you counter hit 6H, well then they die. Though instead of 6H, you can also go into Slayer's 2S with or without a gap, depending on if you delay it or not, which will suck the opponent in towards you. At this point, you can either delay a 2H or 5H for another frame trap, or you can do a delayed special cancel of Bloodsucking Universe to threaten the grab. But going back to close slash, instead of going for either a 2S or a 6H, you can instead go right into far slash, which you can also frame trap by delaying, which will leave you +4 on block to do, well, whatever you want. And at any point, you can either do a K or P dandy step to try and apply a high-low mix. Also, out of far slash, 2H is a pretty strong frame trap if you delay it. Since the opponent gets pushed so far back on block and 2H is so disjointed, even if your opponent DPs after far slash, you'll be too far away to get hit by it by most DPs. Well, Leos will still probably hit you because it's Leo, but you know. Also worth noting is that there is no meterless way to make the high-low mix-up off of dandy step hit without a large gap during pressure. So you really have to condition your opponent to stop hitting buttons while you're pressuring them, because if they're mashing and you go for a dandy step, they'll pretty easily hit you out of it unless you use the K dandy step to go back far enough and dodge their attack. The only meterless and gapless way to apply this high-low off of Dandy Step is to hit the opponent's guard with your blue Wild Assault and immediately cancel into Dandy Step. Moving on, so a pretty common way to end block strings with Slayer is going to be with P Mappa Hunch, such as after 2 Ps, 2 Ds, 2 Hs, and 5 Hs to keep yourself safe since P Mappa Hunch is only -1 on block. And being -1 isn't the worst position for Slayer to be in. He has a few powerful options to take his turn back in offense even when he's at a disadvantage. This is one of the more obvious and straightforward applications of K Dandy Step. After your block string ends and if you think your opponent is going to hit something to try and start their pressure, you can use K Dandy Step to dodge that attack and keep your offense going with one of the follow-ups. And the same deal with Slayer's backdash move, Hand of Doom, which while it doesn't seem to move you back as quickly as K Dandy Step, you do get some invincibility as a trade-off. Retaking your turn back in pressure is going to be something Slayer excels at with these tools. Okay, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, Slayer's defense is just straight up ass. But I'm a good news first kind of guy, so let's start with that. His effective health, which is effectively how much life a character has when you look at all factors affecting it, such as their guts rating and defense modifiers. His is the 5th highest in the game, so he can definitely take some hits before dying. Okay, now on to the bad. One of the most important defensive tools in Guilty Gear Strive is a character's backdash, and Slayer's is probably just the worst in the game. While it does give the highest amount of invulnerability that backdashes give so far in Strive, at 6 frames, it also has a longer total duration than any other 6-frame invul backdash at 28 whole frames, which makes this defensive option on Slayer feel a whole lot more committal and sluggish than it does on other characters. And if its only problem was that it lasted 28 frames with 6 frames of invul, then it'd probably still be a pretty solid backdash. But the major issue with it is that Slayer just does not move backwards quickly, like at all. Most characters start moving backwards with their invulnerability right when they backdash, but Slayer just stands nearly still for a long portion of it. What this means is that even though he has more invul frames than most other backdashes, he'll still get hit in situations when trying to backdash out of pressure where most other characters won't. So due to these pretty lackluster defensive options, especially when I first started playing Slayer, I found myself getting stuck in my opponent's pressure, like a lot, with no idea how to get out. So option number 1 is your Super Mappa Hunch. It is a completely invulnerable super, as we talked about earlier, and it has a slow startup, so you're susceptible to being pressured with low recovery moves, but you can PRC it before the attack comes out for some invulnerability to launch a counterattack. And on the bright side, Slayer does have some pretty solid options for mashing out of pressure. His 2P is 5 frames and has very good range for a 5-frame move, as well as it being able to combo into P Mappa Hunch. And then there's 2H. It feels kind of weird to say you mash with a 13-frame move, but it's a very good counterpoke since it doesn't move Slayer's hurtbox forward like at all and is extremely disjointed. And it's really big. And there's that very generous lower body invulnerability starting on frame 5 through frame 15 that we were talking about earlier that will stuff out any low moves your opponent throws out. So if you're playing against a character that excels at keeping you in this kind of mid-range and you can't find a way to get them to respect anything you're doing, I recommend trying to throw out 2 H's in your defense to create some breathing room for yourself. Just be very mindful of jump-ins, or if the character you're playing against has an even bigger disjointed move. And that's the complete Guilty Gear Strive guide to Slayer. Let me know if there's anything cool you found with this character that I didn't cover in the comments. Let's build up some knowledge here. Also, let me know if there's any other character you'd like to see a guide on. Leo's been my day 1 pick in Strive. Comment down below letting me know if you'd be interested in a guide like this one for Leo. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Peace.